the grasshopper and the ant, or the ant and the grasshopper, either way. It is a fable. And remember, fables, we learn a lesson where there's a moral at the end of the story. You can say a theme as well. So we learn something. Now, we know that the setting is outside. We also know that our characters are the ant and the grasshopper. So today we're going to focus on putting our events, our sequence of events, or things that happen in our story in the correct order. So just like you have to be able to get up in the morning before you can eat breakfast, you got to get up first. We have to follow our events that make sense. So that's what we are going to be focusing on. So reading through our story first, and then we're going to put some pictures in order. So one day, Grasshopper was laying in the hot sun, just singing. The ants were busy finding grain to store for winter. "Slow down, ant. It is too hot to work," called Grasshopper. "You should be finding grain for winter too," Ant called back. But Grasshopper paid no attention to Ant's advice. When cold winter came, the ants kept warm and ate their grain. One cold morning, the ants saw Grasshopper. "May I have some of your grain?" Grasshopper asked. "Where is your grain?" Ant asked Grasshopper. "I was too busy singing to go find any," said Grasshopper. "You can have some grain, but next year you must find your own before winter," said Ant. All right, so we're going to look at these pictures, and I have them a little bit better in my PowerPoint. So we're going to put these together. So I've already done our first one. So in the beginning of our story, we find Grasshopper is singing, and he's not finding any grain, which we all know that he should be doing. So first, Grasshopper is singing. Now we got to look down here, and we got to figure out what comes next. I'm thinking that I need to show that the ants are working, but let me go back to my story, because my first picture is this. So one day, Grasshopper was laying in the sun. He was singing. So here we go. Ooh, our next picture. So the ants are busy finding grain to store for winter. So we were right. So let's get this one. And also, you're going to notice that these letters do not go in order. So we're not just putting it A, B, C, D, and all that. This just happens to be A and B are right after each other. So first, the grasshopper is singing. Next, the ants are busy collecting grain for the winter. What comes next? I'm telling the ants to slow down, it's too hot. So let's find that one. Ooh, here we go. Here's the one with the grasshopper. And he is, let me move these over. And he is telling them it is too hot. So first the grasshopper is singing and not doing any work. Next, the ants are collecting their grain for the winter. After that, the grasshopper is telling them, you guys are working too hard. Let's see what comes next. I think it's something about winter time. You should be finding grain for the winter too. We don't have anything like that. Ooh, we do have this picture though. So winter came and the ants were warm and had their grain to eat. So let's go up here. So our next is right here. So the ant or the grasshopper was singing. The ants were working. After that, the grasshopper is telling the ants, you are working too hard. Next, we find that the ants are happy and warm and they have enough food. Now, I know next that grasshopper is just sitting there cold and doesn't have anything to eat. So let's look. So one cold morning, the ants saw the grasshopper. So let's put that there. The ants saw the grasshopper. So notice again, we're not in order of our letters. So you're going to notice that these are not correct. Those are just, if we were to write them down, that's what we would do, but we're actually using the pictures. So the grasshopper is singing and not doing his work. Next, the ants are busy collecting grain to store for the winter. After that, we have the grasshoppers telling them, oh, you guys are working too hard. And then we find that, oh, the ants are nice and happy and warm and have enough food. After that, we see that the ants find the grasshopper. Now we know what comes next. And so, may I have some of your grain? Asked the grasshopper. So here we go. So the grasshopper asked the ants for the grain. And what happens after that? What happens after that? Let's look through. What happens after that? Because we got to know what happens at the end of our story. Where is your grain? Ant asked Grasshopper. I was too busy singing to go find any, said Grasshopper. You can have some grain, but next year you must find your own before winter. So what happens after Grasshopper asked the ant for some grain? Correct! Yes! What happens is that the ants tell the grasshopper, of course you can, but next time you gotta do your work and you need to stop singing. So this is how the events in our story go. So first, we have the grasshopper is singing. Next, the ants are busy working collecting grain. Then the grasshopper tells them, you guys are working too hard. After that, the ants are nice and warm and have enough food to eat during the winter time. So I see the winter right here. After that, the ants go outside and they see the grasshopper all by himself. Oh, you know what? Miss Sparks just realized that she did the wrong thing. See, this is always good to show us. Okay, so this one comes next. So the ants come out after. Let me redo this because I see that he has the grain here and he's eating it. Miss Sparks thought that she didn't see the grain here. So let's start over again. Miss Sparks messed up. Okay. You're probably thinking, Miss Sparks, you got that wrong. Okay, first, here we go. First, the grasshopper was singing. Next, the ants were collecting grain to store for the winter. Then the grasshopper is telling them, you guys are working too hard. After that, the winter came and the ants had enough food and were warm for the winter. Oh, next, here we go. The ant sees the grasshopper and the grasshopper asks if he could have more grain. And then finally, this is where it is. Finally, the ants say, yes, you can have some, but you have to next year, you have to pick your own grain and not be singing or playing around. So I apologize for having those two switched up. But this is our order of our event. So you're going to head to your Jamboard, and it's going to look pretty similar to this. It has first, next, then, after that, next, and then finally instead of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you need to go back into the story, you can pause this, you can look at it, just go back and forth, just like what Miss Sparks did. So heading to your Jamboard.